first thing I want to say is, yeah, I'm so pumped up you guys are going to be racing. This race is fantastic. Not only is it a super fun race, a challenging race, a beautiful race, it's going to be an amazing vacation. And last year when I was there, all I could think of was how much fun it would be to have like a huge group of TriForcers going there to race and party and have fun. So that's what it's going to be. So I've got some notes. So I'm gonna toggle over to my notes. Let's see, screen share, and here we go. So in a nutshell, the Honu race, it's actually not that hard if you just look at the course. It's a rolling bike on a good surface. The run doesn't really have any serious hills, except for the heat and the winds. And those heat and winds can be super challenging. So the winds on the bike can be so bad that you're going downhill, going 12 to 15 miles an hour, and it can really feel like a grind. So, and then the run can be super hot, especially those of us in the Bay Area that haven't prepared. There's a good chance we're going to feel like we're suffocating out there, because not only is it hot and humid. So the temperatures always say it's 85 degrees and humid, but out in the lava fields, the lava rocks collect heat all day long, and then they start radiating it back up. So it really feels more like 100 degrees. So just be mentally aware. It's going to be pretty tough out there. Oops. So here are the top tips. So number one, when you exit the swim, the sun is going to be in your eyes. So before you get in, look for a landmark for sighting your way back in. Number two, the first part of the bike is actually pretty easy. We'll go over the bike course in a little bit, but my advice is to keep it pretty relaxed, a little under what you think you can hold for a half Ironman until you hit the base of the long climb up to Hawi. We'll go over that on the course. And then, as I recommend for most races, but especially this one, coast or go easy when you're at nice high speeds going downhill. Finally, a big part, which I posted on the G Plus list today, is relaxing and staying aerodynamic in crosswinds. Look, if we're lucky, we'll barely even notice the winds. If we're unlucky, we're going to be feeling like we're getting blown off the road. But either way, just follow proper technique, and you should be fine. So, like I mentioned on the run, it's going to be hot. So I recommend, first of all, besides, you're going to just have to go a little bit slower than what you're used to in regular conditions. But also, at every aid station, be cooling off, dump ice in your shorts, ice on your head, water over your head, sponges. Taking that 15 seconds it takes to cool off is well worth it. And then hopefully you guys can all see the screen that I'm sharing, but if not, anyway, you can just go by my notes. So just a few notes, and then hopefully, I don't have all these notes. This isn't a perfect list of notes, but I wanted to just list enough stuff to, at least prod you guys to start asking some questions and hopefully stimulate some questions on your part. So first I want to say, those of you using tri-bike transport last year, they really screwed up a lot of people's bikes. My tire exploded the second I got on it. A lot of people had nicks and scratches. So right when you pick up your bike, check it. And if you have latex tubes in your bike, they may deflate your tires fully and then reinflate them. And with latex tubes, when somebody does that to your bike, it's risking a pinch flat as soon as you start to ride. So I would basically remount your latex tubes before biking. Sunscreen in the race, use it the night before and the morning of the race. And then I got burnt after the race. So just make sure to sunscreen up. There's a split transition. So the day before the race, you're going to have to bike down and take a shuttle back unless somebody can drop off your bike. But yeah, you just have to make sure to drop your bike off. But you're going to be back there again in the morning so you can add anything to that bike. It should be pretty easy. And then just like any other split transition race, like Oceanside, you'll have to drop off your run stuff. I think either the day before, you'll probably want to do it the day before. So your bottle, your shoes, whatever, your race belt, all that stuff should be in T2, which is right next to the host hotel. Another thing to make sure you do, practice getting out of your swim skin when you're wet, and as well if you're wearing, say, the Octane or a different suit. Sorry, I'm reading your questions and getting distracted. Good questions. Wearing your Octane or a different suit, practice getting into that one wet. So we can get together and practice that. I think Rob and I worked out the perfect technique for getting in and out of the suit. So I'll see if I can remember that. And then finally, during the week when we're there, most of us are woefully underprepared for the heat. So make sure you're getting in some light heat practice. But, this isn't the time for basically working out in the heat till you're ready to pass out. Just we don't want to deplete ourselves and be exhausted going into it. Let's see. Let me start taking some questions, even though they might be a little bit out of order, but I don't want to miss them. So Ken's question: with dumping water on my head, my shoes got soggy. Any tips to prevent that? The short answer, no. There's no possible way to prevent that, especially with the humidity. Even if you didn't dump water on your head, your shoes would be soaked with your own sweat because the water's not evaporating. So what I recommend in that case is, what I like to do is basically just saturate my socks in Vaseline. And that way, even though your shoes are soaking wet, you're not going to get blisters. You've got kind of that layer of protection that's going to keep the friction from being bad. But no, your shoes, there's basically no preventing your shoes from getting soaking wet. Sorry, Ken. Lee Moore asks, more windy than Ironman Arizona? Yes, on a bad day. Oops, let me select the question. On a bad day, it is going to be way, way, way worse than Ironman Arizona. On a good day, it might be somewhat similar. But yes, I would expect much worse. And then, it's kind of not even comparable. But let's keep our fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx myself, but I have incredible luck with weather when I race. So hopefully we'll get a nice, peaceful day. All right. And Johan asks, can I use a parachute to go faster with tailwinds? So it's a good question. I suppose if the wind is traveling faster than you're biking, you could use a parachute, but it would be blowing in front of you and it would make it difficult for you to see where you're going. But I believe you're the rocket scientist. So I refer that question to you. Alex asks, what is the wave/tide situation? I think depending on the winds, it can be a little choppy. I know last year the water wasn't so bad. I think we're in a bit of a somewhat protected area at that beach, but I would expect choppy water. I don't think tides are an issue, but there can definitely be some chop. So I would expect it to be a reasonably choppy open water swim. Oh, and Caroline wanted me to mention that we are flying in at 9:30 a.m. and that she's going to be already drunk from drinking Mai Tais on the plane. So if any of you guys are in the mood to hang out with a rip-roaring drunk Caroline, she will be available starting at 9:30 a.m. Ken says, regarding a speed suit, he tried out Lee's trash bag technique for putting on the sleeves. He keeps the trash bag inside his swim skin and during the swim so that he could use it during the run into T1. It worked pretty well. Yes, that is one popular trick. And that works for a lot of people. So go for it. Bruna contributes. Yes, Vaseline works, but some people just hold ice in their hands. Staying cool is really important. I learned a visor is more cool, lets the head evaporate than a cap. Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of wearing a hat. I feel like it just kind of keeps the heat in. I actually don't even like visors because I feel like even the little headband keeps me warm. But yeah, a lot of visors are very important. Caps are good only because they will let you hold ice on your head. But yeah, so yeah, good tips. In addition, just so you guys know, I plan to wear my TriForce run singlet, which during the run, which for me is like feels way more cool than keeping my octane cap up. But on the other hand, some people love to get that octane top nice and cold. They're putting ice in there, putting water in it, and they find the evaporation effect is helpful. And actually, which my next comment is going to relate to Alex's next question. Arm coolers on the bike or bare arm plus sunscreen? So arm coolers, and even to a lesser extent, say the octane suit, they rely on evaporation for keeping you cool. But in extremely humid conditions like the Big Island, there's not much evaporating going on. So I would say I think bare skin would be cooler. So I would go bare skin and sunscreen. And the fact that I think bare skin is cooler is also why I like to run in the singlet as opposed to wearing, say, the octane top up. Also, yeah, if there's no change tent, but if there was a change tent, I would wear the Speedo. But I found that the Speedo is not as, I'm not comfortable wearing a Speedo underneath my octane when I bike, but if I could, I would. So next up, you guys are just keeping the questions coming. All right, let's keep hitting the questions. Maybe we'll hit everything. So Johan asks, in other races, you guys mentioned you could cut some of the swim routes shorter by aiming for only the last buoys. Is that the same at Honu? Yes, I think theoretically here, let's pull up the swim map. Hey, Caroline, are you able to see my screen sharing? Okay, Caroline says, so as you can see, theoretically, if you look at the swim map, there's no time savings to be had by cutting any buoys. However, sometimes the corner buoys are mandatory, and you can read the racing guide. Sometimes the corner buoys are mandatory, and these middle buoys are suggested. So these might be orange buoys, and these might be yellow. If for some reason one of these yellow buoys was far outside, and it's an optional buoy, so we'll read the racing guide, and if someone reminds me at the end, I can do that, or you guys can do it and get back to us. Yeah, so if one of the orange yellow buoys was outside of the line, then you would be better off just cutting it out, assuming it's an optional buoy. And then finally, just to reiterate something I said earlier, the sun rises, this is west, sun is rising to the east. When you're turning back in, you're gonna have a very difficult time seeing to the beach. So just find something you want to sight for. There's some rocks here, some other stuff, something that you're gonna be able to see. And remember to do that before the start of the swim. So for those of you on the beach with me, I'll be trying to do that as well. Okay, and Runa contributes. So just so you guys know, Runa qualified for Kona for the first time last year. And he's lucky enough that his wife has family on the Big Island. And so he spent, I think, over a month training for Kona on the Big Island. So he was able to practice all kinds of stuff, and he knows the course inside and out. And he says he tried arm coolers and they just made him hotter. And he believes the octane top did have a cooling effect, which was better than a loose shirt. So I definitely trust Runa's judgment because he basically tested and retested. So, you might want to get out there and try both of them yourself, because I don't know, a lot of it could be mental. For me, the octane feels hot and stifling. Mine's also relatively tight on me because especially right now, I'm a little bit in fat bastard mode. So Runa's a lean, mean racing machine right now. So that could be one difference. Okay. Greg Jones asked, is there any current to be used in our favor in the swim? Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. But if there is, there's kind of no trick to using it. So it'll be kind of benefiting everybody or hurting everybody. Yeah, and this is a good tip though. One thing that we do want to do is keep an eye on the pro swim start. And you may see that they end up drifting in one direction. So if they end up drifting out to the left because there's a current or tide, then yeah, we want to see whether or not that's happening. And I know that did happen one year. It didn't seem to happen last year. But let's say they're drifting out to the left, and we would want to start on the right and swim straight and let the current pull us to the left, as opposed to starting on the line and then struggling against the current to stay inside the buoy. So good question, Greg. And Caroline contributes. Unfortunately, Kevin is about 45 seconds delayed, but now it's live per her viewing. So yeah, that's old, but so I don't know if I'm now live or if I'm still delayed. I guess if I was once delayed, I'm probably still delayed. So if I'm not responding quickly to your questions, that's why. So, okay, so let me continue on. And as you guys have questions, keep posting them. So that's the top tips. Pre-race, split transition, getting out of heat practice. So, the critical factor for this race is the heat. So, I mean, when you guys step out of the airplane, if it's a reasonably hot day, you're going to know what I'm talking about, because the airport is in a lava field, and you basically step out of the airplane, you walk down steps in the lava field. And I know when I've stepped out on a reasonably warm day, my first thought is, holy God, how am I going to do an Ironman in these conditions? So just taking a bit of a tangent, last year I made some mistakes that were pretty costly. First, I did this, and also, if any of you guys listen to the I Am Talk podcast, Coach John Newsom, who's the host of that, we both left our swim skin on. So I unzipped mine down to my waist. Was planning to take it off in transition. But once it's down to your waist, it kind of blends in with your octane. It's kind of very easy to forget that it's there, because it's not like a wetsuit where you remember. So I left it on, and I had to get off the bike halfway through and just take it off at one of the aid stations. Big mistake. I had my bike in the wrong gear in transition. So coming out of T1, you mount your bike and you're on a relatively steep hill. And so if you're in the wrong gear, it's going to be very tough to get up that hill. So make sure you're in a nice, easy gear. And in T2, I forgot my race belt, and they don't let you out without your race belt and number. So I ran all the way out, and then they made me run all the way back to my spot to get it. So the swim skin cost me a minute. Being bike in the wrong gear lost me some time in transition. Forgetting the belt cost me time. So I lost some time because of all that. And then not applying sunscreen again after the race kind of gave me the old sunburn. So we've already discussed the swim. Pretty straightforward. Mass start. So for those of you who've never done a mass start, you kind of need to know where to seed yourself. So if we don't have any swimmers that are going to be going to this race who are fast enough to be in the front. Now, we have a whole group of us that are pretty similar. Me, Andrew, Snickers, Lee. I'm sure we're kind of in the sub 30 group. So we might want to be a couple people back, maybe toward the middle. And then, if you're more of a 33 to 34, you might be back toward the middle, a little bit slower than that, further back. So, and definitely rule of thumb is if you start further forward a little too aggressively, you might end up with a better time, but you risk getting swum over and drowned. So the more you value not having a peaceful swim, the further back you want to start, even if you have to end up swimming around some people. It's a hassle if you're not the type of person who likes a lot of physical contact, at least not people aggressively swimming over you, or on the side of being a little too far back. And like I mentioned before, on the way back in, we're not going to be able to see. So yeah, find something to sight on. So swim pacing, just the general rule for everybody is don't go anaerobic at the start. So don't sprint out and run out of air. So, and then the great thing about a mass start is if you're basically in the right area, you should be able to go out and you should be able to find feet to draft very easily. So you should get pulled all the way out to the first buoy by the group you're in. So that makes it nice. So just kind of tuck in somewhere, and get a nice ride along if you can manage it. And that's Caroline's picture of the swim start. So when you get out, T1, hopefully you look like this guy and not like, I don't know if you can see this guy. Anyway, yeah, doesn't look too happy, but that's also another picture of T1. So coming out of T1, there's like a pretty long run uphill. They actually let you stash a bag of clothes along the way. So if you wanted to, you could keep your clothes on the way, or if you want to stash your plastic bags on there, on the side with some shoes, you're welcome to do that. Don't sprint up the hill, jog walk up the hill, walk up the steepest parts. Just a note to myself from last year about T1, bring my own pump, because none of the pumps worked on my valve extenders. Remember to take off the swim skin. I forgot last year. And remember, there's a pretty big hill after the mount line, so be in an easy gear. And then finally, if you're new to doing flying mounts and having your shoes on your bike, this probably isn't the race you want to do it for the first time. Just because adding that hill right out of transition adds a level of complexity and a bit of high stakes aspect to the mount. So if your bike is, basically if you screw up the mount, you're going uphill and you lose speed, things can get kind of ugly. So for this one, if you're not used to putting the shoes on the bike, I would leave them. I would just put them on your feet in transition. And I know they do someone mentioned something about where you're allowed to keep your shoes in transition. I don't know. So refer to the race guide for that, or to the legendary TriForce Google Plus group, or actually I think it's might be buried in someone's race report. So if somebody knows the rule about where you can put your shoes, if you could post it as a question, I'd be grateful. Okay, so selecting Greg Jones's question. Is the race number required on the bike as it is in international races? I don't see it in the guide, but I want to confirm prior to race gear drop off. So in recent years, the WTC has not been requiring us to wear a number on the bike. And if they don't mention it in the race guide that they're requiring it, then I assume that you don't have to wear it. So I think you're in the clear. You might want to ask at the race, but as far as I know, yeah, if they don't mention it now, kind of the default is that you don't have to wear it. Alex asks, mass swim start, any tips? So I think I've covered this, but so the number one thing is to seed yourself in the right spot. So you want to, if you're lucky, the people in front of you are slightly faster than you, and the people behind you are slightly slower than you, and the people near you are about the same speed. Now, obviously, enough people put themselves in the wrong spot that you're going to have to swim over some people, and some people may swim over you. But I would say the way to do the math would be, if you go to your oceanside swim, find out where you ranked, and because this is a mass start, you want to find out where you ranked overall in terms of percentage. And let's say that you were 50th percentile. So that would mean you would start basically right in the middle of the pack. If you're, top 10%, that would mean you'd start somewhere in the top 10%. So kind of doing a little bit of number crunching and using a little bit of past experience to kind of figure out where you're supposed to be is worth the time spent. And then as far as a little bit of technique in the mass swim start, I try to find a little pocket of peace where a lot of times, if you can find a nice little hip to swim on, just kind of find somewhere where there's not a lot of contact, where you can kind of tuck in behind someone or next to someone who's going about the right space. And if you find that spot, just stay there. And if things get disrupted, see if you can find another little niche. So it's more about just find a little place where you get tucked in. And, if you're seating yourself even 25% the way back, you have 500 people ahead of you giving you a nice pull. So just take advantage of that, tuck in, and try to get sucked out and sucked around for as long as you can manage. Okay, so Runa contributes. Lee asked him about shoes. Okay, so this is where I heard this. Race Guy says, in the bag or on bike are both okay, but I think what is not okay, so you can leave it in your bag there, but what is not okay is just leaving it on the ground next to your bike. Okay, so I think so the main thing about T2 is the big hill. And so obviously, as you guys know, as I mentioned, there's a pretty big hill after the mount line. So besides, adjusting your mount and your gearing for that, don't hammer up that hill. Go up nice and easy. Be relaxed. Don't push it. So here's the fun part. And one of the reasons why I think this course is really fun, because the bike ride is basically on the legendary upper portion of the Kona bike course. And so, for those of you who've never done Kona or never done Honu, now when you watch the Kona coverage on TV, you're gonna see all the spots where you bike during this race. And it makes it a lot more fun. So as you can see, the T2 is up here. Our swim is a few miles down here at Hupuna Beach State Park. And so what we do is we come up the hill out of the swim, make a right, and this is the Queen K. It's the main highway. And then it continues on a different road up to the top. So we're basically more or less staying on one road for the entire time. And that's also what the 5 swim wades. Interesting. Okay, okay, so I'm going to just take it aside. Runa says now it's a wave start, 5 waves. So, okay, that could be good or bad, but yeah, most people prefer things being broken up. So yeah, thank you for that info, Runa. I prefer mass starts, but wave starts would probably be more fun for most people, except for me. All right. So basically we come out, we make a right onto the main highway, just go up, add 5 miles just to make the course the right length, come back. So imagine here's the beach, come out, turn around, you can see it's rollers, come back to the beach, down from the beach to this town called Kauai. Nice gradual downhill. You can see it's up, down, rolling. Anytime you're picking up speed, getting up close to 30 miles an hour, you got momentum, especially here. If there's not crosswinds or headwinds and you've got the good speed, bank your rest. Now, when you get down to this town called Kauai, that's basically when the climb starts up to Hawi. And this is the heart and soul of the course. So I recommend that you more or less hold back for these first 12 miles, treat it as a warm-up almost. Then you can see it's rolling down to the base of the steep climb. Now, even this isn't that steep. You head up, you're probably going to be staying in the aero position the entire time. There are a few spots you might want to sit up. I would cap this effort at somewhere. There's almost nowhere except for a few steep spots where you're going to want to go above a sweet spot effort. So even on this, keeping around 90%, except for on some steeper parts, you might, a stronger rider might go up to 95, 100% just for little bits at a time. Then you hit the top. There's a little town up at the top. And if we're lucky, we weren't holding onto our bike for dear life, hoping not to get blown over on the uphill up here at Hawi. Turn around, and then here is the downhill. So if conditions are good and fast, you might be able to coast huge amount of this downhill, and that's what I tend to do. If there's nasty headwinds or nasty gusting winds, you're probably going to want to bike. If there's nasty crosswinds, you're going to want to pedal just to keep the bike going straight and reorient yourself. But for the most part, when it's calm, I'm coasting huge amounts of this. And what that lets me do is, just bank heartbeats, bank watts. And I've noticed when other people pedal, they're really, for their effort, not they're passing me, but they're not getting a lot of time, a lot of distance. So that's one huge energy saver. And then last year, I wasn't having a strong day, so I was banking a lot of rest and recovery on all the gradual downhills, all the rollers, and I saved a ton of watts. And I still was coming off the bike in a very high spot. So it just kind of goes to show that you're not going to lose a lot of time taking that extra rest, and I totally recommend it. So as you can see, there's plenty of aid stations. So you come out, one aid station here, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 aid stations. So that's more than your average half Ironman. So it's about an aid station every 10 miles. So take advantage of it. Hydration is a huge issue. Do not get behind on your hydration. You might not need to go crazy in the beginning, but you're not gonna want to fall behind. So make sure that you don't want to get caught on any of these stretches with an empty bottle. I would probably myself like to drink 4, maybe even 5 bottles, depending on how warm it gets. So it's probably going to be relatively cool weather-wise in the beginning. And then as we're coming back in, it's going to get hot, and then it's probably also going to be quite windy. So the keys to the bike. If it's windy coming back in, it can be really, really tough and depressing and tiring. You could be putting out good power and just feeling like you're getting nowhere. And it's just a rusty feeling to be like putting out that power in the wind, and it's blowing at you from a side angle and it's uncomfortable. And so it could be very hard. And so that's why I recommend banking the energy in the first part of the race, because it could be nasty on the way back in. As I mentioned before, consider all the way down to the Hawaii High, where the Kleine Havi begins. Consider that a warm up. So be definitely on the safe side of your ranges, conserving energy until there. Also, what I mentioned before, bank energy on the downhills. I really believe in this. I've done it every time I raced in Kona, and definitely my last couple of races there, I've had really fast bike splits, even though I'm coasting and banking energy much more than my competitors. What that lets me do is on the way back in, when it's windy, when it's grindy, when you have a good race, you're just going to be passing people like crazy, even in a race like the World Championship at Kona. So, and then finally, the wind's back in. Don't tense up, relax. Remember, this is a true Big Island Kona experience if the winds are insane. Hopefully it won't be, but if it is, you're getting your money's worth. And when you see it on TV, you'll have some war stories to tell. This is a great shot Caroline took. This is kind of the rolling section between the swim course and I think the turnaround. So you can kind of see how it's kind of nice and rolling. There are chances to bank some watts on these nice gradual downhills. There are also chances to, you also want to be staying aero here, but your power is going to go up a little bit on these uphills. You're going to bank some watts on the downhills, but on the whole, your normalized power is probably going to be relatively low on this course, just because you have so many chances to bank watts. And so finally, well, not finally, but a big part of this course is if the winds do get crazy and you're descending from Hawi, just relax, distribute your weight, pedal when the gusts hit you, smile, and have some fun. I just posted that post on the TriForce site, and I recommend you guys read that and check it out. And then finally, like I mentioned, look, at Kona, there have been some nasty years, but you've got like 75-year-old women, 85-year-old men. Marinda Carfree weighs like probably 95 pounds. Look, most of those are getting up and down the hill and surviving. So if you're a little nervous, just remember that. If they can do it, we can do it. So, and then this is just, you guys know, half Ironman pacing. It's a medium effort. For a good athlete, it's somewhere from, maybe 80 to 85% of your experience, and you're at the point where you're racing a half Ironman. For someone who is doing your first half Ironman and you just want to be comfortable and you want to finish, you might be somewhere more around 75% effort. And you're not going to lose a lot of speed by backing off 10%. And then you go a little harder on the uphills. You know, an experienced athlete might be around 80% of threshold on the flats, 90% on gradual uphills, 100% only on the steepest uphills and recovering. And then nutrition, we talk about this a lot, but you know, as a general rule, if you want to be safe, 300 calories an hour on the bike. Whether, you know, the easiest way is to get that is with sports drink. If you can tolerate the Gatorade they serve, that's the easiest way. A lot of people, like myself, can't tolerate it. 200 to 250 on the run is safe. You know, if for those of you who still haven't worked out your run strategy, people on the team have a really, really strong track record taking Coke during the run. So if you haven't worked out your plan yet, I would consider using Coke during the run. And just one thing, in hotter conditions, it's really harder to digest. So solids and bars that require a lot of chewing, you know, in the morning when it's cool, you might want to start with those. But, you know, I'd say by the end of the bike ride, you're probably going to want to be looking for something more like a gel or a liquid or something more refreshing or easily digested, as opposed to, say, more like as opposed to a dry bar or something like that. And finally, I don't have T2 in here, but T2, simple enough. You bike into the hotel, rack your bike. My number one tip is do not forget your race belt, because I forgot mine last year. Runa told me he forgot his the previous year, so it's easy to do. Grab your belt, grab your bottle, grab your race belt, head out onto the run course. So for the run, I know some of you have been doing some heat prep, but just based on the way the conditions have been here in the Bay Area, I know hopefully, Greg, you've had hotter weather in Texas, but dude, most of us are not prepared for the heat on this course. And that just means that we have to go a little bit slower, and we have to be conscientious about our cooling during the race. So I also recommend cooling during the bike ride. As soon as you start feeling a little bit warm, or even before then, preempt it. You know, if you can grab some water, squirt it in your helmet vents, squirt it on your top, just to preemptively cool, stay ahead of the game, I recommend that. So yeah, so the run, the hotter it is, just the more you're gonna have to back off. And I recommend cooling off at every aid station. And really, if you look at this map, you see you're kind of running around the resorts, around golf courses, but the heart and soul of the course is, I think this probably starts around mile 9, probably about mile 9. I think this starts, and this is, some people call it the road to nowhere. Some people call it Hell's Kitchen. And it's basically an access road that goes through the lava fields. It's typically boiling hot, lava fields on both sides. You run down, do a U-turn, and run back up. And the goal of the race is to be feeling good when you hit that section, so you can relax, fly down the gradual downhill, and push it up here. And once you get to the top of that, it's time to push it home. So yeah, stay on top of your hydration, your fueling, taking Coke, taking water, cool off at every aid station, ice in your shorts, ice in your hat, sponges, water, whatever it takes. You know, do it quickly, but you know, it's worth the 10 or 15 seconds it takes to really cool off. And the other thing to be aware of, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, but part of the course is running over squishy golf course grass. And out on those golf courses, it is really hot. You're not getting a lot of energy return from your foot strike. So it's going to be a slog, but that's part of the race. And on the plus side, the fact that you're running on all that golf course grass will make your recovery quicker. So at least there's a plus side to it. Just be mentally aware. Here's me running in Hell's Kitchen. See lava fields on both sides, hot, empty, somewhat depressing if you're not looking forward to it. Here's coming into the finish. Here's Ken, the man, Ashcraft, finishing up. So the finish line is awesome. They have a cold shower there. They've got great food. They've got beer. They've got a band. They've got coconuts you can buy. So if you're feeling crappy, just get to the party at the finish. Just keep pushing. Don't stop. And you'll get there. So here's me, Mimi, and fake Ken's body double. I think Mimi, I don't think we managed to get a picture of all three of us. So that's Ken's stand-in. So yeah, I think that concludes it. I mean, it's going to be a super fun week. I'm just going for a B race, a fun race, mostly just going down there to have fun with the team, have a good race, and enjoy Hawaii and support you guys. So I don't know, that about covers everything I can think of saying for the race. Please, if anybody has any questions, post them. I'll hang out here for a little bit. If you don't have any questions, I'll get going in a couple minutes. And I know there's a 45-second delay, so I have to wait until we get to the end of my presentation, which I can hear an echo of upstairs. So before I ask for final questions, I have to wait. And here I am again. Oh, Ken Ashcraft suggests maybe talk about drafting rules. Good question, Ken. So you guys should know by now there's rules about drafting. So you have to stay a legal distance behind the bike ahead of you. And then the good thing is on the, you're welcome, Runa. Thanks for dropping in and helping out. Yeah, so you have to stay, I don't know, it's either 7 or 10 meters, but on the Kona course, it's really easy. They have reflectors spread apart on the road on the side. And if you are outside of a reflector's distance from the person ahead of you, you're not in the draft zone. If you get into the draft zone, you have 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to pass before you have a drafting violation. And this, I don't know, you would think that this race would be crowded and drafty, but from what I saw before, it wasn't. If it's a headwind race, unfortunately, the consequence of headwinds is that it tends to cause people to cluster together, because as soon as you get anywhere near someone's drafting zone, you get such a benefit, you get draft sucked in. But hopefully, if it's a normal, and that's what happened to Kona last year, but hopefully if it's a normal crosswind type year or no wind, it should be a very fair race. Okay, so I think that covers that. Michael asks, thanks, Kevin. Could you share the presentation document? I sure can. And do we post race plans onto Google Plus for review or email? Post it onto Google Plus like people do. Post it in a Google Doc and allow commenting. And that not only allows me to comment, but team members are really awesome and helpful about making their own notes, which they very often catch things that I miss, or they make suggestions that I hadn't thought of. So definitely best to post it on the G Plus list. Good question, Michael. All right, I think you guys have probably caught up to me. Well, at least caught up to where I was hoping you were going to catch up to. So I think, Runa's signing off. Thank you, Runa. Yeah, so I think unless I see a question in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to wrap up. This is TriForce coach Kevin Cody signing off.